Good morning, Anchorage, Alaska, the lower 48, and the rest of the world. This is Bruce Lindquist with his podcast, Wonderful Counselor. If you've been with me, you know I'm a Christ follower and that there's only one wonderful counselor, and that is my Lord and Savior Jesus. You also know I've been a counselor for 39 years, and I've been writing and recording these podcasts over the last few years to an international audience. Wonderful Counselor Podcast continues to bring to you Coffee House Theater, a mini-series that's called Hide and Seek. Episode 1 is titled, Does Love Have an Evil Twin Sister? And you need to start with that episode. Episode 2 was titled Hide and Seek. Episode 3, Come Find Me. Episode 4, Demonize the Body Count. Episode 5, Candy Meets the Serial Killer. And tonight's episode, Episode 6, Good Ole Joe. Before I begin tonight's episode, if you listened to episode 5 and thought it was inappropriate, too dark for you, then you've been warned. This episode is dark on steroids. No children should ever listen to this, and only teenagers after parents view contents. You may be asking, why is it so dark? And that would be a good question. Thanks for asking. To understand the good news, here's your answer. You need to know how horrible the bad news is. So let's begin. Towering majestically in the sky is snow-laced Pioneer's Peak, and in its shadow on a country road is Joe, a 70-year-old man with kind facial features and a gentleman's presence, as he's driving through the small community which he lived, Palmer, Alaska, to his house next to the state fairgrounds. He passed the school where he played Santa just recently. He's been doing that for many years for the children. He's known as Grandpa Joe in these parts and is quite the philanthropist, donating millions to hospitals and schools. And during times of flood or fire, he's always there paying for needed resources, way ahead of any state or federal assistance. They even named a street after him and a coffee shop. Such a grateful community. Joe was so well known, when he woke up in the morning and had his cup of coffee with the locals, the police officers would come in and pay for his coffee. That's the least they could do for such an outstanding citizen. The police chief every year personally went to Joe's house on Christmas and delivered a crate of Joe's favorite coffee shipped from the Incas. Joe was so well liked and respected, moms around the town named their children after him. And if you listen to them talk to their kids, you'd hear them say things like, "Why can't you be more like Joe?" As Joe drove past the baseball field, a ball rolled out in front of his truck. And many would just drive by, but not good old Joe. He stopped and picked it up, threw the ball to the kids, encouraging them to enjoy their childhood and to hit a home run for him. The boy just held the ball like it was a treasured gift, and then looked up and said, "Thank you, Joe." Joe noticed as he neared his home a young brownish black-haired woman who was a dear friend of the family. Her name was Misty, and she was walking her faithful friend, Peg, a beautiful brown lab. Joe pulled into the garage and walked out to greet her. He spoke to her in a fatherly voice. "I'm so glad you came for her surprise 25th birthday." Misty smiled and looked at Joe. She wouldn't have missed it for the world. After all, Amanda and her had been best friends since they were little, and they did everything together. She shared, "I bought her a gift. I'm so excited. I can't wait for her to see it." Joe shared, "She's headed back to college on Sunday, but we're so grateful we get to see her and you." Misty followed Joe inside the garage, and Peg was padding behind them and was the first to smell the roast. Misty seemed always happy. Her dimples danced. She was giggling with excitement. She could barely stand the anticipation of Amanda opening her birthday present. That she had been working extra hours at the women's clothing store so she could afford it. Joe asked Misty to wait just a moment. He was getting his daughter's gift out of its secret hiding place. He handed her the remote control and asked if she would close the door for me, dear, while I fiddle with this. Misty pushed the button, and the evening sunlight slowly faded from view as the steel door closed. Misty felt a shiver and heard Joe's voice echo, "Make sure you take your shoes off. I know you don't mean to, but sometimes dog poop gets left on your shoes." Misty kicked up her heels and looked at her shoes, like she was a graceful ballerina. "No poop on these shoes," she smiled, and then headed toward the door of the house. Misty then put her shoes next to Joe's. Joe picked up one of his shoes and said, "But there is dog poop on mine." Misty apologized and said she'd buy Joe a new pair of shoes. Joe reassured her that would not be necessary, and all was forgiven. He calmly then, without hesitation, struck her in the temple with the shoe. She crumpled to the floor. Joe stood over her body, and Peg was so preoccupied with smelling the roast, she didn't see what happened. Joe got down on his knee and playfully called Peg, who ran to him expecting some love. Joe petted the dog, and Peg laid down in the submissive position, and then Joe broke its neck. The lifeless dog fell to the floor. Joe then, using his remote control, unlocked the compartment embedded in the floor of the truck, hidden out of view, slid out a plexiglass, dimly lit see-through container with a matching lid. Joe dragged Misty's body and laid her in the makeshift coffin and placed Peg to the side of her. He then went to the trash and pulled out a dozen plastic poop bags colored with pink and green that had been put in his trash and yard by this poor excuse of a dog owner. He opened each bag carefully, adding just enough water to make the crap moist, closed them tight, lifted her head, and used the first two as pillows, and then laid her head back. He then dropped one on her mouth and nose, like she did in his yard, and then along both sides of her head. He then lifted her shirt, exposing her stomach, and placed two bags there and pulled her shirt back over them. The last of the bags he adorned the rest of her body with, and then pushed the remote control of the plexiglass lid so it closed and slid back into its compartment, sight unseen. Joe washed his hands in the sink, picked up the birthday present off the floor Misty was going to give his daughter, and tossed it in the back seat of the truck. He then went inside and greeted his wife, Joan, and Amanda. The family sat at the table ready to eat, but Amanda wanted to wait for her friend Misty. Joe shared, "You don't want your food to get cold. I'm sure she's close by and will be around in a bit." Joe began polite dinner conversation as Joan had brought in a succulent roast with golden potatoes, mushroom gravy, and spiced carrots, Amanda's favorite. Joe looked at his wife and complimented her on the exquisite meal. After dinner, Joe, Joan, and Amanda went upstairs where there was a birthday cake awaiting her. Joe lit the candles and said, "Make a wish," and at the same moment, Misty came to with a horrible headache. Her eyes were not yet open, but her senses were overwhelmed with the odor of dog crap, so powerful she could taste it. She put her hand over her face, inadvertently pushing the crap into her eyes, nose, and throat. Misty made a muffled scream, but there was no one to hear. She felt something warm on her stomach and reached down, only to break the bag open, and like a brown waterfall of gravity, took the liquid, soaking her pants and feet. Misty then caught the corner of her eye, Peg's face, and reached for her, only to feel dead fur. Misty buried her face in her beloved dog's fur, now wetted with sobs of tears, and just held her until there was no more water left in her eyes. She rolled back and looked up. She was in a container. She reached up to push on the lid. It would not move. Horror washed over her as the thought invaded her head. She was going to suffocate to death, and terror shot through her body like electrical current without a grounding wire. She clawed at the lid, feeling no longer human but like a trapped animal, unaware of the sound of her fingernails breaking until the blood from her hands fell on her face. She then saw the pinholes in the lid that barely let in any oxygen, and she raised up in rapid succession and smashed her face into the plexiglass, sucking scant traces of air just to get a small breath, and then fell back hopelessly into the pillow, engulfed in dog feces. Joe thought for a moment, eating his piece of his daughter's chocolate birthday cake. How much Misty would take before her will was his. He imagined her cries and her screams, thought if she would just have been a responsible dog owner. As now her cute little dimples were covered with dog crap and her white teeth browned by feces, Joe mused. She had become just like the crap on his shoes. Amanda looked at her dad and asked what he was thinking. Joe shared about inconsistent dog owners. Amanda smiled. Yeah, they're the worst. Joan shared, now you have mentioned this, did you talk with our neighbor about leaving her dog poop bags in our trash can and yard? Joe smiled. We had a brief conversation. She was very empathetic about our request. I assure you she'll be taken care of. Joan went over and hugged her husband and said, thank you. It would have been the death of me if I fell again trying to avoid those landmines. Joe asked his daughter about medical school and then handed her a gift from both of them. Amanda opened it, a personalized set of scalpels. Amanda kissed her dad. These are just what I needed. We're going to start to practice on the cadavers. Amanda's heart was touched that her dad was proud of her and supported her passion, helping others. She was so proud of her dad for all the work he did in the community, and she was so happy to be his daughter. Amanda looked at her dad. I'm 25 now, and you promised, if I was still alive, you would share with me our family history. Joe shared, that'll be tomorrow night, but first you need to get up early in the morning and go on a journey with him in the woods, as he has a birthday present for her that will change her life forever. Amanda kissed her dad on the forehead and said to her mom, I'm so excited I don't think I'll be able to sleep. Joe smiled at his daughter. You know how to make sleep come. His daughter winked at her dad and said, I will sleep well tonight and dream of tomorrow and open my eyes to my surprise. Amanda got in her nightgown, another birthday present from her mom, crawled into her bed, laid her head against the soft pillow. She felt a warm sensation of sleep wrap around her like a blanket, tightening and loosening with every breath throughout the night, and finally, in sweet release, she fell asleep. It was as if her body knew it was preparing for something she had waited for her whole life. She awoke and smelled her gown. I need a shower, she thought. The bears are attracted to the smell of a woman, and since this has been a warm winter, she's taken no chances, just in case a previously hibernating bear woke up early and was hungry. She took an unusually hot shower, dressed in light clothes complete with her tenny runners. Her dad was up and fixing breakfast. Joan looked at her husband. She was so excited for her daughter, as the possibilities in her life would be endless. Amanda liked all the attention and couldn't imagine what this day would bring. Joe kissed Joan and both started off when a frantic woman blocked the driveway. It was Misty's mom, Becky, and she shared her daughter's missing. She didn't come home last night, and she's very worried. Please help me. And Peg's gone too. Joe looked at his daughter, and Amanda was quite worried, and both agreed of course they would help. Joan came out of the house and held her friend. Let me bring you in. Let's have some tea. I'm sure she'll be found. There must be a good reason she's missing. Joe called the police. They brought in the search dogs and put up pictures for the missing woman. Many in the town came together right next to Joe's truck. Some got on the metal bed, unaware Misty was barely breathing in a hidden plexiglass coffin just a few feet under them. She heard her mother crying, and she could mouth the words, Mom. She could hear how the community was coming together to find her, but she had no voice left. She couldn't move. She just lay there motionless, afraid to breathe, too much, for it might be her last. Her heart was barely beating. Her body had completely shut down like a deer frozen in terror. Her mind floated above the truck, screaming without words, I'm here! Under your feet! Please, someone save me! The men did the sweep of the neighborhood for most of the day, taking a break and having some bottled water, sitting right on the back of the truck. Joe was glad he put in the odor barriers in the container, otherwise the smell of dog feces, human urine, and blood would have given away the body's location. They searched the town and local woods, but they could not find Misty or her dog. Joe informed her mother, Becky, and she cried on his shoulder, "Thank you for organizing this search party." Joe looked at Becky. "We're not giving up. I promise you, someone will find her and Peg. This is such a small community." Becky was in tears. Ever since her husband died, this is all the family she has left. Joe met up with the team. "Keep looking. He and his daughter are going to go expand the search in the Wasilla area." Amanda was getting even more worried about her friend and dog missing. "It just doesn't make sense," said Amanda. "She's supposed to be at my birthday party last night. Something must have happened to her." Joe responded, "I know this isn't your idea of a birthday weekend," he paused. "The only place we haven't looked. Remember that park I used to take you both to?" And Amanda responded, "The one just out of town? Yes, maybe she's there, or is hurt, or can't get back. Let's go." Joe drove to the desolate park, backed his truck up to a solitary wooden bench. They searched the park, and there was no sign of her. Joe shared, "I know the timing is not ideal, but it is the family tradition to give you your birthday present now. It will help you with your fears about what happened to Misty." Amanda shared, "Dad, I don't think that's possible." "Do you trust me?" said Joe. "I trust you, Dad," said Amanda. "Then close your eyes and do not for any circumstances open them," and she promised. Amanda heard a whirling sound coming from the truck. Joe put on yellow rubber gloves and dragged Misty's body to the bench and placed her in the sitting position. Joe could have done anything to her. She was barely alive, and her body was her tomb. He then put Peg next to her and put her hand on Peg's head, like she was petting him. Joe looked into Misty's eyes. She was dissociating. He shook her and then whispered, "You're safe, Misty. Amanda's here." And her mind returned to her body, and she stared at Joe and her best friend. Joe then walked his daughter to her body and said, "Open your hand." And Amanda did, and he placed one of the new scalpels she got for her birthday in it and closed it. Amanda felt the scalpel in her hand. Joe explained, "Our family has a ritual, a rite of passage, if you will." Amanda shared, "Like when the Alaska Native kills his first bear?" Joe shared, "Yes, he proved his manhood, and you today will prove your womanhood. Now walk closer." Misty watched her best friend walk towards her. Joe led Amanda right next to Misty. Amanda said, "What is that horrible smell, Dad?" "It's an animal you're about to put out of its misery. It was caught in a trap," said Joe, and I've been trying to nurse it to health. You're a doctor. Your rite of passage will be to end its suffering. Do you trust me?" "I trust you, Dad," said Amanda. Joe led Amanda to put the scalpel right on Misty's neck. Misty felt the blade. She begged in her mind for her life. "I'm not an animal, Amanda. I'm your best friend. Please don't do this. Open your eyes. Open your eyes." But her mind screams faded, and she heard the words from Joe. "Now draw the blade down and make the incision, and end this poor, pitiful creature's life." Amanda shared, "I trust you, Dad," and slit Misty's throat, and the crimson blood started to drip from her neck. "Now open your eyes," said Joe. At first, Amanda's mind could not conceive what she was seeing. She was looking into the most terrified face, one of a million nightmares. It was her childhood friend Misty. She looked at the scalpel in her hand. It was covered with her blood. Amanda couldn't speak. She was frozen. Her mind couldn't comprehend. She had just cut her best friend's throat. She kept looking into her eyes. It was the most horrifying sight she had ever seen. Amanda looked down at the bloody scalpel in her hand, looked into Misty's eyes, her tortured body. She couldn't imagine how much she had suffered. Misty was still alive. Amanda's thoughts were like echoes, howling unforgiving wind. "I just slit my best friend's throat." Amanda's voice was now like a whisper. "You tortured her, Dad. You did this. She loved you. You were a dad and a grandpa to her after her dad died. She was my best friend." Amanda could feel the rage building with every word she said. Joe, in his calm, gentle voice, said, I didn't torture her at all. I simply created the environment for her to torture herself. I didn't beat her face into the plexiglass lid. She tried to grasp for air. I didn't break off her nails. She's the one who crawled to try to get out. She's the one who panicked. I didn't cover her with dog feces. I merely put the bags on her like she left in our yard and trash can. She's the one who smeared the dog crap all over her body and drank it some, I suppose. She could have called out any time for help, but she chose not to. When I opened the container a few minutes ago, she could have run, but she chose to stay there and let me do whatever I wished to her. When you approached her with a scalpel, she could have yelled, open your eyes, but she didn't. All these were her choices, and now you have a choice to make. I'm not a murderer like you, said Amanda. Joe spoke. Yet you were willing to kill to prove your womanhood, which you have. I thought she was an animal suffering, and Joe shared she was. And now you're slowly ending her miserable, although now prolonging her suffering. Now you have a choice, said Joe, and I'm not responsible for that choice, you are. Amanda looked at her best friend and then at the scalpel. Joe shared in his relaxing voice, which was now shivers down Amanda's spine. I know you want to save your friend, and to do that you must kill me or try. You're in medical school. Do you really think there's anything you can do to save her? There's not much blood left in her body. Did you notice the change in her skin? Her bowels are about to let go, and she will be dead. Amanda shared, I can still kill you. Oh, you can try, said Joe. But if you don't, I'll kill you, and then toss your body in a ditch like it was roadkill. Oh, before you decide, consider this. If you kill me, that would be 2 people you murdered with your scalpel in less than 30 minutes, and that would break my record. And once you taste that much blood, you'll end up being just like me anyway. The hour's getting late, so here's your choice. Try and kill me, or let me be your mentor and torturer of death. Amanda whirled around with the scalpel to plunge it into the heart of her dad. What was Amanda's choice? Would she end her dad's life? Would he end hers? Or would she become like her dad? Find out in episode 7, The Nothing People.